Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Boot Nerds podcast. My name is Jeffrey. Jay, what's going on?
I'm fantastic. How are you, my man?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
You're pretty good. Okay,
Pretty
let's
good.
leave it at that.
I thought I had more. I didn't.
Before we get into today's topic, guys, thank you so much for joining for the 39th time. If you've been watching everything, don't forget, as always, if you have any questions for Jeffrey, aka Josh, aka whatever it says on his name right over there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section right down below. Also, if you want to support the Boot Nerds podcast, please leave a like on the video and go subscribe with the bell notifications on, of course. We're going to be very, very happy. But Josh, today we have something that will maybe, change your life. It's that good.
They will change your life because they are the 5 life-changing football boot tips that you may or may not know about. Because a lot of people think that football boots are very simple, but as boot nerds, we know that at least we are able to very much make it a much more complicated thing than it perhaps needs to be. But I think with these 5 tips, it could potentially change your experience in terms of how you interact with your football boots.
Yes. And also we're going to go kind of give you the most important things that you need to understand in order to get the best experience out of your boots. Basically, they're tips for buying the right boots, but obviously also, when you have the boots, how do you get the most out of it? Those little tips that we have kind of gathered over the years, what we have learned from wearing, I don't know how many pairs of football boots, that is what we're going to pass on to you guys today in the official Boot Nerds life-changing football boot tips, patent pending, etc.
Cool.
Etc. Yeah. So the first one, Josh.
Yeah, we'll start with what I think is probably the most important thing when it comes to any pair of football boots, and that is the sizing.
Size, yeah.
This is, having worked in a soccer store for 3 or 4 years.
I wonder what's that's like.
Is way too long.
Yeah, okay.
It blew my mind how many people would come in and think that they were wearing the right size. They'd come in with, hey, last season's boots don't fit. They're a size 10. Now I think I need a size 11. And they end up leaving the store with a size 9 because they've been wearing their boots too big. Wearing boots too small is a pretty uncommon thing because I think a lot of people immediately recognize when they put a boot that's too small on their foot that it's too small and it hurts and it's uncomfortable. But boots too big, super common. I don't know if you agree with this or not.
I do. I mean, I often get the feeling that people wear their sizes a little bit big just for comfort and because, when you're a kid, I don't know if this is a thing in Canada, but when you're a kid in Denmark, you're always taught that you should always have like a thumbs with extra space in the toe of your boots to make sure that you don't outgrow them too quickly. Now, if you're a kid and your feet are still growing, that might still apply. I would probably, buy boots that actually fit my kids' feet and then just buy more boots, but that's just me. But it might work when you're a kid, but when you grow up and your feet aren't growing that much anymore, I would say, you should go away from the thumbs with extra space in your boots because you want your football boots to be tight. I mean, this is a sport where you have to perform. This is a sport where you need to be in touch with the ball. You need to be as close to the ball as possible. And also you need to have the boot sitting securely around your foot. And if it's a size too big, if there's, negative space inside of the boot that your foot can occupy and slide into, well, then you're not going to have a very good experience. And it's simply going to feel chunky and going to make you feel more clumsy. And ultimately, I mean, when I wear a boot that's too big, I feel like my technique is getting worse. It might just be mental, but it just feels wrong.
No, I'm with you. This is... Whenever you watch, there's so many great clips on Instagram and social media in general of pros just doing such skillful things and making it look so easy. And they're so precise. And part of that precision, part of what goes into being that good is making sure that you have what is basically a perfect connection between your foot and the football boots. So having any kind of extra space, not to say that it's going to give you the excuse to allow you to blame your boots for messing up, but I definitely think that it's a factor in regards to messing up. I think we've probably all played with at least one guy who wears his boots maybe like 2 sizes too big, and you can actually see the extra space at the end of the boot. And there's so much extra space that just from running, the toe kind of starts to curl up a little bit. And I don't understand those people and how they're able to play like that. But you can't tell me that that doesn't affect you in one way or another when it comes to shooting the ball, when it comes to being precise and just making good, clean touches.
I think it will definitely affect people who wear, a couple of sizes too big, or even just half a size too big. For me, that's often enough. Of course, I'm also very fickle with my boots, and I need to get the right size. But I think we've also all done it. I mean, I'm gonna hold my hands up. I did once, when I was a teenager, wear a size Europe 42, and my feet have never been bigger than a Europe size 40. So I mean, I've done it, I've tried it, and it freaking sucks. So definitely try and get the right size. How do you get the right size then? Well, there is a very good trick of simply measuring your feet. Okay, it's difficult to really measure your feet and find out if you're a US or UK 7 or a Europe 40 or something like that. But the good thing is that whenever you measure your feet and then you find how long it is in centimeters. See, every brand, they also give you the size in Japanese measurements. And here, they give you your foot length or the length of the boot in millimeters. That means that my foot is 250 millimeters long for that instance. So I'm a Japan 250. That equals a size Europe 40 or a US 7, UK 6. You get the deal. So it's a very good way of, measuring your feet, looking at the Japanese sizing, and then, figuring out what you need in other, in all the boot sizes, especially because some of the brands vary from size to size. I'm usually UK 6 in Adi and a US 7 in Nike, and it can be a little bit difficult to find out what is what, right? So
the sizing doesn't always match up from brand to brand.
Exactly. And that's kind of my trick to ensure that I always get the right size is to go for the Japanese sizing, because it's super easy. I can measure my foot and I know, okay, this is probably the size I need to get.
Yeah, it would make so much more sense to actually base sizing of all footwear on an actual measurement rather than just these made up sizing terms.
I know. And that's also the thing, it's not necessarily always that you can just see, okay, what am I wearing in size for my sneakers, and then just convert that to your football boots. Because I've heard of people, Jolter, for instance, who wears his sneakers a size bigger because he just likes it roomy and more comfortable. I don't know what you do.
I do pretty much the same thing. Like I'll typically wear a half size to a full size smaller in a football boot than I will in most sneakers. Just based on how snug I like my football boots to feel.
Right.
And I think the one piece of, the one question I guess a lot of people ask is how much room should they leave in their boots, whether they're growing or not. You mentioned if you're a kid, leaving a little bit of extra space is a pretty normal thing. And I don't really have a problem with that. But here's the thing with modern football boots in general, and I think most people watching this will agree, they're not as durable as they perhaps once were. So the likelihood of you buying these boots with growing room for you to grow into, by the time you've actually grown to that size, the boots will probably be broken.
Most
and you'll
likely,
need to buy new ones anyways.
Yeah.
So my advice has always been, even with, unless it's a really, really little kid, is if you're planning on wearing the boots right now, buy them so they fit you right now, because that's going to offer the best experience. And like I said, they're likely to not last long enough for you to outgrow them.
Exactly. And another point is, if you're a kid and you want your kid to learn how to properly play football, how to properly kick a ball, it doesn't really help them if there's like a big chunk of boot that, doesn't really match their foot. There's just, like extra space in their boots, because their technique from being a very young kid is going to be different kicking the ball than it would be if they had a boot that actually matched the size of their foot. It's simply just, because technique is about getting used to how to connect with the ball, right? How much to get under the ball and all that stuff. So if you have a boot that's too big for, let's say, 5 or 6 years, and then you actually end up getting the right size when you're a teenager, you might have to readjust your way of kicking a ball.
But it would still be to your benefit to wear that boot that fits you properly, right?
Absolutely. What I'm just saying is the earlier the better.
Yeah, absolutely. But people always make the argument it's the player, not the boots.
Of course.
There is a reason why Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi are not running around in clown shoes. They want their boots to fit as snug as possible because they need to be as precise as possible. You basically want the boots to become a part of your foot rather than something that is kind of attached or strapped to your foot that you can feel and is kind of in the way. You don't want your football boots to be in the way. And if they're a little bit big, at least that's the sensation that I get. So instead of saying, oh, you need a full thumb's width or half a thumb's width, because everyone has different sized thumbs, so that it's not really an accurate unit of measurement. My advice would be to have the boots fit as snug as possible in the length without being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Realize that all football boots are going to fit more tight and more snug than a running shoe or the average sneaker will. So that's not something to be alarmed by. They're going to stretch a little bit over time. You just want to make sure that they're not super uncomfortable immediately out of the box, because that's typically a sign that they're going to be too small. And if you feel like there's too much space in the boot, maybe you can go down a half size and just have that super snug 1-to-1 fit.
Exactly. And also remember that your feet are going to swell a little bit. So if they're already uncomfortable when you're just wearing them in the store around the house, it might be a sign that, okay, they are a little bit too tight. And that's also the important thing. You shouldn't buy a boot that's too big, but you also shouldn't buy one that's too small. That's just counterproductive. And as you said, it's not the boot, it's the player. Yeah, but you also don't want the boots to be an obstacle for you to do what you do, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. If your boots feel that clumsy that you feel like you're playing against your boots,
yeah.
you probably have the wrong size.
Exactly. So let's close that off and say buy the right size. It might seem like a very simple thing, but it can actually take some time to find out what the right size for you is. So that's very important. Another life-changing tip from the boot nerds would be to get grip socks. Okay, it's not necessarily a boot thing, but if you get grip socks, you might, I would basically say you might improve the pleasure of wearing your football boots by 100%. For me, grip socks, they really give me a sense of being connected better to my boot. Basically getting this one-to-one sensation that you just discussed that you need, right? Because you eliminate all the sliding around inside the boot, and typically grip socks are also just really, really high-quality socks. So seriously, go get a pair.
Yeah, I think grip socks are a life-changing tip. I think quality socks in general.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's some people that maybe don't even play competitively, and they play in whatever house league it is, and the house league provides them with a pair of socks, and they only played 1 year, but hey, I'm going to wear those same socks for 11 years.
Yeah.
and if you've ever had a really old pair of socks, eventually they get a little bit rough. They get a little bit almost sandpapery, and all of a sudden you start to get blisters and you start to feel uncomfortable, even though your boots have never given you any problems up until that point. It's probably because your socks need to be replaced. In the case of grip socks, you're getting typically a very high quality sock, no matter which brand you go for. And the added grip, especially for somebody that struggles with a little bit of slippage inside of the boot, because you're never really going to find a boot that fits you exactly perfect. That can definitely help from a comfort standpoint. It can increase the overall responsiveness and certainly improve the feel of the boots. And it's something that is popular for a reason. There's a lot of pros wearing grip socks because they're legitimately that good. So they're a little bit expensive, but I think if you value having that super connected feel to your boots, it's well worth the investment.
I actually have a funny story. I was out playing with my team, and we got hooked up with some grip socks and team socks, compression socks by Lightguard. Big up, by the way, guys. And we used to wear like these crappy all sports socks, like standard super cheap socks that ended up getting really loose, and all the elasticity just went away after the first use, and everyone hates them, right? So they went into these new socks, and everyone was just saying, wow, it's a brand new experience. Like they literally felt a better connection in their boots, and this is, these guys don't care at all about their, most of them wear takedowns and all that stuff. They just, even they felt a significant improvement in the fit. So even if you don't really care and you don't obsess as much over the fit in your boots, getting a pair of grip socks will just give you that, it can be like that experience. And for me, that's really, really a big game changer.
You know what? That's a funny story, because that's almost the worst part of joining a new team. Is like, oh no, what kind of socks am I going to have to wear?
I always bring my own. Seriously, always bring my own. That's the number one. That's the number one key. I just basically bought a pair of like tube socks. Got one in my team size, and then I can wear my grip socks and the tube socks over. That's also a brilliant tip, by the way. Bring your own socks.
A little bit more work, but totally worth it in the long run.
Right.
Which brings us to our third point. And I guess this only applies if you still wear boots with laces, which is probably most people that watch this podcast, if we're being honest. And this is in regards to how you lace up the boots, specifically at the very top lacing position. I think what a lot of people have probably struggled with is you tie your boots, you start the match, and after about 20 minutes, your boots have kind of loosened up a little bit, and they don't feel right. And you have to retie them, and then after another 20 minutes, you get the same sensation. There is a way to better lock the laces in place, and it's simply by inverting the top lace hole. And I guess the piece of advice for this is it's more so applies to boots that use a more traditional single lace hole system, like those X99.1s. With dual lace hole setups, like a lot of boots have these days, it's not quite as important, although you can still do it. What ends up happening is because you end up tying the boot kind of onto the lacing system at the top position, it locks it better. And as long as that top part is locked, it's going to lock all of the lacing positions below it a lot better. Whereas with a traditional setup, it kind of loses its tension and kind of loosens up very evenly across the entire foot, which just makes for an all over loose feel. So if you're somebody that really struggles with keeping your boots nice and tight, that is a great way, or at least something that's very simple to try, even just in a training session, and see how you like it.
And the thing is that, when you tie it like this normally, so you put the tip of the lace from the inside and go out. That's how most people tie their shoes and their boots, right? Then the tension is going to be different, as you said, compared to if you go outside in. Because here, the tension of keeping the boot in place and locking it in isn't going to be as strong compared to if you pull it out and go from the outside in. See, here it's more locked, and when you really pull it tight, that's really going to take the top part of the lacing system and pull it very close over your foot, locking that mid part of the foot in place. It's a little bit like doing the runner's loop, where you try to lock that part down as well as the heel. And here you actually lock the top part of the foot down, and it really gives a more secure sensation for me. It's a very, very simple tip, but trust me when I say it works.
And you can do the whole boot like that. I'm sure you've noticed, Jay, but Mizuno does this on their boots out of the box.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Right? They invert all of the lacing position. So as you're tying it up, and you'll notice it just as you tie them up, even without completely finishing, that as you're tightening it section by section, it's actually maintaining its tightness rather than the normal way, where as you start going up, you'll already at the bottom, it started to loosen up from when you initially tightened it. So it's something to play around with, and a very simple thing, free to do, doesn't take a lot of time, but it might be a life-changing tip for you if you struggle with keeping your boots tight over the course of a 90-minute match.
Exactly. And if you're really clever and you really need extra lockdown, you can also do what is called the runner's loop, where it's basically that you take the lace, and instead of crossing for the last lace hole, you basically, instead of going across, you go up and you put it in from the outside. Let's see if I can do it here, creating a loop. You do the same thing on the other side, like so. So you're basically going up for both sides. Then you have loops. So then you take the opposite lace tip and you go through the hoop and do the same thing right here. Oh, that's difficult while talking into the microphone. So then you create this like sort of self-locking mechanism, where basically when you lock the boots and you really tie them up and pull them tight, you create this locking sensation. It really locks down the midfoot and also kind of locks in the heel, because it really pushes the foot down and back in the boot. So if you need a little bit more lockdown than just pulling the laces in from the outside, you can do the runner's loop.
What other podcast teaches you how to tie your shoes? If you're not subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast at this point, what are you waiting for? This is groundbreaking stuff right here. Which brings us
to the next one, which is, yes, that size was important. But getting the right stud pattern is also very, very important for your overall pleasure of wearing the boots. And on top of that, the warranty of your boots and your own, should we say, safety.
By far, the most important. Look, your boots can break. You cannot have the best grip. But if you're wearing boots that are putting you at a higher risk of injury, that alone should be motivation to get the proper stud pattern for the proper playing surface. Right. And this is one of the most common mistakes in the football boot industry these days. And it's a relatively new issue based on the fact that artificial grass pitches are still a relatively new thing, I would say in the last 10 years or so. But as of right now, they are very, very common. And a lot of people wear firm ground boots, and God forbid some people even wear soft ground boots on artificial grass.
Yeah, that has to stop. That has to stop right now, my man. My knees simply hurt every time I see this. And I don't know what kind of logic those people have thinking, oh, wait, I have a soft ground pair of boots. Let me go out and literally wear them on a carpet. It doesn't make sense. Soft ground boots are made to penetrate the ground deeply, but an AG pitch cannot be penetrated as deeply because it's not normal dirt. It's just a big difference. See, the difference between a normal grass pitch and an artificial pitch is that the artificial pitch is artificial. So when you step on a normal natural pitch, you penetrate the ground more simply because, you break down the grass, you break down the dirt, it kind of crumbles up and it breaks. The problem is that when you step on artificial pitches and you step on the artificial grass straws and you step on those little rubber pellets or whatever the filling is, you don't break it. It's simply you're just going to compress it. So it's still going to be there. It's just going to be harder and you're not going to penetrate it in the same way. That means that rather your studs going into the ground, your studs are kind of still running on top of the ground, meaning that you get more unstable. And for that, you need a different set of studs, basically.
Yeah, the thing about artificial grass is it grabs and it doesn't let go.
Exactly.
So you can almost look at artificial grass as kind of the equivalent of hard ground, where the surface is very shallow. And I've had people say, oh, I play on a really good 4G, 5G, 6G, 9G artificial grass field. I don't even think that means anything. I feel like people are just making that up. But there's no artificial grass field that currently exists that is deep enough to warrant wearing soft ground boots or really firm ground boots. So the reason why you'd want to go for something with an AG stud pattern is simply based on the fact that it's going to be safer and it's actually going to provide less grip. Less grip is what you're looking for here, exactly. Which sounds totally backwards, but it's what you want.
Yeah, because if your boot is too grippy, then the moment you start to change direction, it's going to be stuck in the ground. And if that happens, the lower part of your leg is stuck while the top part above the knee starts to move. Well, what is the joint that can be, manipulated and be flexible? That is your knee, and then your knee might go. And that's not something you want. Plus, you actually get a better performance out of using AG Pro boots because they have been made to grip a little less and be a bit better for turning. Simply the rotational motion is better on AG Pro stud patterns than they are on FG stud patterns. So if you play on artificial pitches at any point, get AG Pro boots because you can actually also use them on a lot of FG pitches because they rock. And they're not too bad either. Look at Neymar. He's wearing AG Pro.
Mm-hmm. And to the people that will comment, oh, I've been wearing firm ground boots on artificial grass my whole life and I've never gotten hurt. Well,
good for you.
Knock on wood. I mean, you can do it. I've done it. It doesn't feel unsafe, but it only takes that split second, that one moment to have a pretty serious injury.
And I think,
and just to tell a gross story that happened when I was 17, 18 years old. This was actually in high school soccer. We were playing on an AG pitch, which we rarely did in high school soccer. It was always on these terrible farmers field grass pitches that were just bumpy as just terrible.
Yeah.
But we played on the university AG field, and guy in the midfield makes a pass, late slide tackle comes in, and the guy hits his plant foot. If it was on grass, he probably just would have slipped, right? He could have just kind of jumped out of the way, but because his foot was planted, his leg just snapped in half. And again, it's a case of firm ground boots on artificial grass. It's the worst thing. If you've ever seen an artificial grass injury due to having the wrong stud pattern,
you never get away with it.
It'll motivate you to buy an AG stud pattern.
Yeah. I've also seen some things where people basically try to change direction and, their knee, and below the knee, it just stops and it stays, and the rest of the leg and the body just continues, and the knee is gone. And it's not very nice to see, and people are in serious pain. So, no, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So keep that in mind. The last thing to keep in mind is perhaps not as important, but to a lot of people, it's something they really don't think about. So probably also one of our life-changing tips is, of course, to get the right pair of boots. But the way to get the right pair of boots is to actually take a step back and not buy into the hype or buy into the whole storytelling around boots for certain positions, or not buying the pair of boots that your favorite player is wearing, because they prefer one thing and you might prefer another thing. So the key here is to figure out what you want, what you're looking for, material-wise, fit-wise, of course, the size. What is it you want in a football boot? That is something only you will know.
It's great advice, and it's advice that I think more so applies to kids, and I wish it was advice that I would have gotten as a kid, because I had a period of time where, I want to wear Vapor 3s and Vapor 4s and Superfly 1s, and they were boots that were never, ever comfortable for me, were constantly giving me blisters, were causing my feet to literally bleed, but I insisted, simply based on the fact that some of the best players were wearing Mercurials, even though I had a playing style that was nothing like those players. Yeah. And I needed to wear those boots just because of that reason. And then the one time I decided to get a pair of Nike T90 Lasers, which is the exact opposite of what I had been wearing up until that point, I realized to myself, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? I've been suffering for years for basically no reason at all.
And see, that's kind of the thing. I realize this happens to a lot of kids, but maybe also, younger guys out there in their late teens, maybe they're hearing, they're hearing all the hype and especially seeing all the hype on Instagram, here on YouTube. I mean, it might also be more difficult today because there is just a hype around certain boots, There is a hype around the Mercurials, the X's, the Futures even, some of those boots that are really just big out there. They're cool, they're sexy, they're being marketed like there's no tomorrow, right? It might be easy to just buy into that, but if your foot, doesn't fit the last of the boots, or if you have a very wide foot, it's going to be difficult, more difficult to fit into a Mercurial, or simply you just don't like boots that are very thin. Well, the Mercurial, newsflash, isn't going to be for you. You should look at something else. Despite the fact that it might not be the right boot. It might not be the boot that will make your teammates go, oh man, that's sick, when you rock up at training, right? It's nice, it's fun, but it's not necessarily the best choice for you.
Yeah, I think the key to this tip is to actually be honest with yourself. Because I'm just thinking back to 14-year-old me getting my brand new Vapor 4s, wearing them for the first time into an all-running training session, leaving that training session, barely able to walk because there's no skin left on my heels, and then knowing that in 48 hours, I'm going to have another running training session. And even though I had perfectly comfortable boots to wear instead, or even running shoes, because we weren't even actually kicking a ball, I decided it would be a good idea to just put 82 layers of tape on my heels to the point where I could barely get the boots on anymore and just wear them again and suffer for another 2.5 hours, right? Like, it just blows my mind that I did that.
Yeah.
And it's me being stubborn.
But this is why we're here to let people learn from our mistakes, really. Because it's just a bad idea to wear something that it's like this is a big life discussion. Don't be something you're not. It's like, it's the same. Be yourself, wear the boots that you feel comfortable in. Don't wear the boots, don't fall for the group pressure on YouTube or Instagram or from your teammates. Wear what you like. Even if that means wearing a pair that isn't as sexy. Could even be wearing a brand that isn't as sexy. Because in the end, it's going to mean that you can take your mind off of your boots, you can feel comfortable, and usually that means that you can play a little bit more freely. Usually that also means better, right?
You know what? What you just said is a great point. I think having your own opinion is very, very important, but you said it there, and it's something that I didn't experience until probably 15, 16 years old. When you have a pair of boots that fit you properly and are comfortable and kind of meet all of these guidelines that we talked about, and you're able to just play and not think about your boots, that is exactly what you want from a pair of football boots. You want to be able to forget that they're on your feet. They're now just an extension of your body and a tool that's helping you perform to the best of your abilities. If you're constantly having to think about your boots because they're too loose or they're a little bit too big or they're moving around or they're uncomfortable, that's taking your mind off of the game. The game is very much about concentration. So once you get all of those things right and you're just able to play, that's how you know you have the right pair of boots for you.
Exactly. And again, it's not about the boots, it's about the player. But if the player's head is gone because he's wearing the wrong boots, well, then it becomes a whole lot about the boots, right? So
absolutely.
So yeah, get the right boots. That's basically what we're trying to say.
Jay, I think we, hopefully with that, we've changed some lives. And if you know somebody that maybe would benefit from some of this information, please share this episode of the Boot Nerds podcast with them and
change their lives.
I'm sure we can change their lives as well.
Yeah, be that guy. Sharing is caring. Remember that. And I think with that said, if you haven't already left your question in the comment section down below, now is the time to do so, because you might end up getting your question answered just like these guys. For instance, this guy, Ali. Hello, Jay and Jarvis. Ooh, can I be Jarvis?
You can, but I think I'm Jarvis in this situation.
Ugh. Mood killer. I was wondering if takedowns today are better than high-end boots in the last 10 or 15 years. Also, Jarvis, what is your favorite string? Yeah, okay, that's you. What's your favorite string bag of all time? Take it away.
Okay, we'll start with the string bag question because it's the most important of the two. Difficult question. Great question. The one that pops in my head is the one that came with the Mercurial Superfly 4 that had all the silhouettes of all the Mercurials that were represented on that boots with the years that they came out. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool string bag. And again, there's so many string bags that could get honorable mentions, but that's the one that pops in my head, so I'm going to call that my favorite.
Right. If I'm then Jarvis, do you remember the suede single boot bags that came with the old Mercurial SL boots?
I do. Ooh, those were amazing.
They were awesome. They were awesome.
So soft. Yeah. So soft. I remember just getting a pair of Superfly 1s. Actually, no, I had Vapor 4 SLs for like one day. But I remember getting them, taking them out of the box and just putting them on my hands and kind of just wearing them because they were so soft.
Wait, the boot bags?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's why you have a really unhealthy relationship with boot bags in general. Maybe. Let's leave that elegantly right here and move on to the next question because I feel that's probably the best for you. Jill Bieber.
Wait, we got to answer the first part.
Yeah.
Are the takedown models? Oh my gosh, Jay.
Right. Okay.
Good thing Jarvis is paying attention.
Right.
So are new takedown models better than top end boots from like 10 years ago?
Yes.
I think yes. Oh, just straight up yes from you.
I would definitely like from a modern boot perspective, I would definitely say yes. If we take, let's say, if we go 15 years back, right? That would be 2004. If we take 5 boots from 2004 and take 5 takedown models, depending, of course, the price level, but let's say the first takedown model, I would argue that I would rather have the modern boots simply because, fit-wise, weight-wise, overall technology-wise, they would just be better performance and feel less chunky than the old boots. And I would probably feel more at home in those boots. From like innovation point of view, you can argue a lot of things, but I would probably say, yeah.
You're right, because I think looking back 10, 15 years, that's kind of when the start of the modern football boot era began. And a lot of those early synthetics, when compared to what we have now, even in a takedown model, they're just not that good. So if you're comparing like, I even want to say like a Vapor 12 or Vapor 13 Pro versus a Mercurial Vapor 3, I would much rather wear that modern Mercurial takedown model, just based on comfort alone.
Yes. And if we go back to, like, if we go 15 years back, that's the Mercurial Vapor 2s. And I love those boots. They're amazing, but they were blister machines. And if you go into a Vapor 13 Pro, or hell, even an Academy, I mean, I would probably still wear a Vapor 2 over a Vapor 13 Academy because the Academy outsole is not up to par. But from a comfort point of view, yeah, the Academy is way better.
Yeah, I think it depends. If you're into old school power boots like myself, like I'd love to wear an old T90 or an old Predator or something like that. I think that's still better than a lot of the modern, like a modern takedown Predator. I still don't think is all that great, to be fair, especially for how much it costs. But yeah, in general, I think if you're used to the feel of modern football boots, they're going to be a lot better for you than older top end boots.
Yeah. And if we look at, say, the first takedown level from Mizuno, for instance, the made in Indonesia, the Elite boots, I mean, they're better than some of the, the current high-end models from some of the other brands in 2019. So it also really depends on, which takedown boot you take, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many good options for top end and even takedown boots these days. There's really not a lot, unless there's something very specific that you want that's no longer available. There's really not much reason to go back and buy a boot from 10 to 15 years ago.
No. What would be the longest you will go back and wear today?
Like the boot that like Predator Mania pops in my head, I'd still wear those. Yeah, I would.
Wow.
I'd have no problem wearing that.
I'd probably go back to like the Addy Powers. It's probably
Addy Powers are good. I think a lot of people would love like early F50 Addy Zeros.
Yeah, I would go back. I mean, for today's game, I'd probably go back to 2014 and that's it. I wouldn't. Maybe the leather F50 Addy Zeros from 2010, but that's probably it.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
That's fair for most people.
So the next question here, Jilly Reba. Day by day, Jose getting more chances to speak. Thanks. Am I speaking a lot?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I should stop talking. D19K, do you think if New Balance go knitted tech will hurt their line of boots? So if they go with knitted tech, will it hurt their line of boots?
I don't think it can. I don't think it'll hurt them. I think the damage that has been done has already been done for the most part. I guess what I'm saying is their reputation isn't strong enough for them to really damage it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like
if they made boots and they sucked, people would just be like, okay, it's another Vizaro 2 or Furon 1 to 3, basically. People are just, if they make a great knitted boot, people would perhaps actually stand up and pay attention. So I don't really, it sounds bad, but I just don't think, the 2 Tequilas have been good. The Vizaro 1s were really good. But other than that, they haven't really created like standout boots. So there isn't like this big reputation to ruin, I would say.
Yeah, it's fairly low expectations for the brand, right? It's not like when Nike puts out a new Mercurial and everyone hopes for the moon. And if they don't deliver, then everyone's mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas New Balance just, if they come out with a little bit of a stinker, then it's like, it's New Balance. We kind of expected that,
And it sucks that it has to be that way, but that's just the way it is when you've had those years of Vizaro 2s and Furon 1 to 3s. They just have to, it takes some time to make up for that, sadly. So, Alejandro A. Best. Is the golden era of football I can't speak today. Football advertisement, is the golden era of that gone? Why don't we see any more Jose plus 10 commercials, right? The future or Joga Bonito campaigns. Are brands spending less on advertisement these days?
I don't know that they're spending less. I'd like to think that they're spending more than they ever have before, but you're right. There's not a lot of unique advertisement anymore. And again, we have talked about this on the podcast, I don't know how many times. I think it's such a missed opportunity for Nike to not put Neymar or Cristiano Ronaldo attached to all this performance equipment and like show real life testing of like how the boots are performing and how good these guys actually are from an athletic standpoint. I think that would be really cool to see and totally different.
I mean, Nike should basically have done that Castrol commercial that they did with CR7, the whole, push to the limit or whatever it was called. Like that should be a Nike thing. But I think, they're also spending differently these days. It's more about social media and having viral stuff rather than having these big TV campaigns. I think they might be a little bit too long for people's attention span to really catch on, if you know what I mean. It's just a different market today in terms of how you want to spend your money. I think they spend more, definitely, but it's just being spent differently. I think those days are over, to be honest, and it's sad.
Yeah, you're right. Anything past 15 seconds, people don't pay attention to anymore.
So we're basically
I don't like
screwed.
Yeah, there's been some like the creators only thing from Adidas was an interesting decision by them. I don't know. I agree. The golden era of football advertisement is probably over.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Yeah. Okay, so next question here from Ryan Murphy. Best blackout leather boots, Puma King Platinum, Adidas Coppa 19 Plus Arcadic, or the Mizuno Morelia Neo 2 MIJ? 2 girls over drinks a go.
Best looking, Puma King Platinum.
Right.
For sure. To actually play in, for me personally, I really like the Neo 2 Beta. I'm not crazy about the regular Neo 2.
Okay.
Just based on comfort for me.
But you didn't answer the question then. What's the best?
I'm getting to that,
okay,
Jay.
Right.
Have some patience.
15 seconds,
My gosh. Coppa 19 Plus, really good. Touch is incredible. Yep. But the sole plate and stud pattern really turns me off that boot when I compare it to the Puma King Platinum, which is not as good in terms of overall touch, but I like almost everything about that boot. For me, out of those three, it would be the Puma King Platinum.
You're insane.
Wow.
Okay, that would obviously not be my choice based on my reaction. I agree that the King Platinum is very good looking. For me though, the Coppa 19 Plus Arcadic it's fantastic. The silhouette, black with those really like oily purple stripes. It looks amazing. From a performance point of view, it's very close between the Coppa and the Neo 2s, but I would probably take the Neo 2s because of the outsole on the Coppa. If that would have had let's say an X19 Plus tooling, that would definitely have been it.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. We have opposite choices.
It happens sometimes. Opposite. It happens sometimes, and I do respect you. I do. Ahmed Hassem, Tecra Vapor 13 or normal Vapor 13 Elite?
Oh man, I was worried I had lost your respect for a second. I'm glad you were. It's very reassuring for me.
Right.
Okay. Leather Vapor 13 or Flyknit Vapor 13?
Yes.
Look, as the leather one is a novelty in my opinion. It was well executed for the most part. It feels pretty cool, but they overstretch. It's not a sensation that I want from a pair of Mercurials. I would think the Flyknit one is the way to go in my opinion.
I agree. If you're going for a leather boot, what am I talking? Well, if you are going for a leather boot, the Vapor 13 Techcraft is very, very nice. The leather is super, super thin, extremely like raw, and it feels like a very naked leather boot. It's just nice. It's elegant. It's tiptoeing. It's all that jazz. But typically, people going for those premium leather boots aren't looking for thin leather boots. They're looking for very comfortable, like slightly plush and padded leather boots. So the Techcraft might not be the one to go for. Then if you're looking for speed boots, they're typically also looking for very responsive boots with a lot of lockdown. And in that regard, the Flyknit Vapor is simply just better compared to the Techcraft Vapor. So the Techcraft Vapor sits a little bit in between. For me personally, I like the sensation of wearing that, the feeling of the leather upper is, I probably prefer that. If I could combine it with the lockdown from the Flyknit boot, I would take the Techcraft, but I can't, so I would end up having to go with the Flyknit version because of the lockdown.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Nike do, I know Flywire is kind of an obsolete technology
Rio
from the
cables?
brand, almost. No, but I would have liked to have seen them try something along the lines of what they did on the Tiempo Legend 4 Elite.
Right.
On the Techcraft Vapor. I think that would have been cool because I understand it's the combination of technology and craftsmanship, and they maintain the technology in the sole plate, but the upper, aside from the silhouette of the boot, there's really nothing that technological about it. So I would have liked to have seen some implementation of an attempt at maintaining the responsiveness of the standard Mercurial.
Wouldn't it have been awesome if instead of having like the old school Flywire cables that were very rigid when they were, when there were too many of them and they didn't really it was a good concept. It didn't do that good of a job compared to the more modern Rio cables, right? But wouldn't it be awesome if they could weave these like super thin, almost like high tenacity yarn style threads or whatever cables into a leather upper, so they maintained the softness but still had that rigidity, not necessarily as much as the Flyknit Vapor, but still had some sort of rigidity that tightened up whenever there was too much motion inside the boot. That would be very, very cool for me.
You know what, I'd be curious to see if it would work, because every implementation of Flywire, fixed Flywire, has always been
not the best.
Sandwiched into the upper. Yeah. So you can feel the texture from the outside and you can also feel the texture from the inside. And that texture and pressure from the individual cables, you could always feel on your feet. I wonder if you had a leather upper like that and they managed to do the Flywire system on the outside of the boot and then just fuse it so it wasn't any kind of loose cable. If the little bit of padding that you'd get from the leather would take away enough of the pressure to still maintain really good comfort.
Yeah, maybe it depends on the type of the cable. It could also be like a knitted or woven thread sitting on the outside of the leather. That would be viable, I think, from a performance point of view, but maybe not from a durability point of view. So, but it would definitely be interesting to see them merge these two areas, because that is, you kind of have to choose one or the other with the Techcraft Vapors at this point in time. So, I don't know.
Cool. Nike, if you're watching this better not be on the Techcraft Vapor 14.
Yes.
It better not.
Well,
they just stole our idea at that point, Jess.
We'll take 10%. 15. We'll take 15%. Okay. We'll take 15%. 15%. It's a deal, Mike. You have a deal. Okay, we have one more time for one more question here. Hey, Jay and Josh, I have the Coppa 19 Plus, solid option, and the Laceless system doesn't provide much lockdown and has a padded feel, but the leather is so soft and comfortable. Now, would you recommend the Mercurial Vapor 13 or should I stick with leather? So basically, he's got the Coppa 19 Plus. Should he go Vapor 13? I assume Flyknit, or should he stay with his Coppas?
Look, if you really value lockdown and responsiveness, then I think you're probably going to prefer the Vapor.
Yes, but again, this is all about, we can't tell you what you want. It's about the whole, don't listen to the hype thing. Of course, we have a lot of experience, but we can't tell you what is intrinsically right for you. Because we have no idea. If you like the paddedness and the supple, elegant sensation on the Coppa, well, stay with the Coppa. There's, disadvantages and advantages to that. If you want the lockdown, well, you won't get the same padded sensation, but you will get a super responsive boot if you go with the Vapor. You just got to make up your mind. That's the best thing we can tell you.
And you know what? I think if we're going to make it 6 life-changing football boot tips, just to add a 6th one in here at the end. Don't be afraid to try new things, because kind of like I said when I was a kid, I was stuck on Mercurials even though they were killing my feet. Tried a T90 laser, which was the exact opposite of Mercurial, and pretty much loved it and never turned back for the most part. So I kind of understand I really like this and maybe I just want the new version or I want to buy the same boots again, but there's nothing wrong with trying something new either.
Exactly. And maybe, listen to people who have actually tried the boots you're looking at. again, a real life story. Whenever I have people on my team coming up and saying, yo, I need new boots. And I always ask them, what do you want? Well, I want this and this and that. And then I recommend them new boots. There's a guy who's been, he's playing badminton. And in badminton, Mizuno is a very big brand. So I just suggested, have you tried the Mizuno boots? He came from the King Platinum and they broke. And he was like, I need another nice leather boot. And I was like, try the Regular 3 made in Indonesia. The Elites, and now he has them and he loves them. And he would never have tried those boots if I hadn't suggested them. So don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone. And if you hear a nice review or something, go give it a shot.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so much information out there now that you're not really going into anything blind anymore. Where you kind of did have to do that 10 or 15 years ago, right? So you always have an idea of what you're getting into. It's just a matter of making up your mind on what you want or what you would like to try.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the thing where you have to be very well balanced. Don't buy into the hype, but also, it's okay to have your ears and your eyes open and get input from people you trust. Hopefully someone like us. Or someone else.
Which concludes yet another life-changing episode of the Boot Nerds podcast.
Exactly. So if you want to see more of the Boot Nerds podcast, you can actually get a little notification on your phone every time we post a new video. And you can do that by going to subscribe to the channel. That happens on the black button in the middle. And then also clicking the little bell notification button on your screen to get a little ding every time a new video pops up. Now, of course, if you want to see even more of what Josh is doing on a daily basis, you can go subscribe to his channel over there on your screen. You can also check out what we do on Unisport, meeting the biggest stars, teaching you how to improve as a footballer and checking out gear. Occasionally, it's the green bubble right over here somewhere. And finally, of course, do not forget to leave us a question and a thumbs up in the comment section right down below the video. And with that said, guys, I'm JayMike and I approve this message. Herregud.
I also approve the message. I just want to address something that I've been dealing with this entire podcast. Okay. There's like, when you get a little hair and it's kind of like right across the corner of your eye and you can't find the hair? It's been happening for the last hour. So if I'm picking at my face uncontrollably, that's what's happening.
Right. Did you find it?
Nope.
Damn it. Herregud, dreng. Vi ses.